Hello, welcome to another episode of the John Sitton Football Uncensored podcast with me, Joe Mealing, asking the questions. John, how's it going?
Not bad, Joe. Yeah, it's been a good couple of weeks.
Excellente. Yes, yeah, good couple of weeks. The trade is bubbling.
Yeah,
It's
it's
fizzing.
picked up again. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had to field a few questions from customers who, from a personal point of view, and I know it's a general consensus in across the trade. We're trying to stay loyal to the people that stayed loyal to us.
Yeah.
But then you get asked the questions, how comes it's been so hard to get a black cab and all that? And I have to explain to them fundamentally, and quoting you a little bit, there's no money in the black cab trade for TFL. So as a consequence, what they've done by stealth, they've culled their numbers pre-COVID, and then you had the impact of COVID, whereby a lot of drivers decommissioned their cabs, left the trade, handed their cabs back into garages, fleet owners, and left the trade and went back to their original job or their original skill set. And as a consequence, it's brought the numbers right down. And I think they've got an ideal in their head, whereby they'll only have a certain amount of black cabs, where it used to be around about the 20k, 22k mark. That was licenses and cabs on the road. Now it's probably closer to between 13 and 16. And I know the thing that's been touted, TFL have got an ideal of 13k, because obviously they're bankrupt and they're struggling for money. And as I've intimated before, scratched the surface in other interviews, it's counterintuitive to the nonsensical, mythical, non-existent green issue in the UK. But what they've done, they've flooded the streets with an 86% rise in minicab because they need the license fees. And that's the way it's worked out. We're outnumbered probably 8-1 now, between 6 and 8-1. But on the upside, people that have hung in there, like myself, although I'll have a big decision to make in a couple of years, because I've got the freehold of my cab which runs out. The ones that have hung in there, we've been welcomed back with sort of open arms by people who have been turned over by the non-tax-paying US corporation sexual assault and rape app.
Yeah, and it's we mentioned before, didn't we, about back in a year ago now when we was doing the taxi talks, that the taxi trade has never been subsidised, whereas obviously the ride-hailing apps have been. Public transport's been subsidised for donkey's years.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, even a global pandemic where there's literally no movement of people for months and months on end, the trade still survives. Yeah, and I mean this in the nicest possible way, but it's like a cockroach. It's like you cannot defeat the trade. You cannot defeat. It's such an efficient model that you can't defeat it. And this is so interesting to me that it's now, again being utilised as a flexible resource of vehicles when other apps fall by the wayside because of a supply glut. They haven't got the drivers, surge prices are going mega high. Who do you turn to? Again, it's the fourth emergency service, the London Taxi. It's proven the model again.
Yeah. Although I will slightly disagree in terms of you can never get rid of it, because in the respect that for sure Boris Johnson, the birdies married, Khan, TFL, they've all conspired to really do their best. Even Livingstone before him, that's when the rot started to set in. They've conspired to do their best to get rid of us, because it's been like a power grab.
Yeah.
It's another Americanism, as in TFL. You've got people on between 100k. I put it on Twitter yesterday. People on between 100k and 613k a year. The previous head, who was an American, telling people on 25k how to get to and from work, which I think is nothing short of a disgrace. Then you've got a Labour mayor penalising the poorer echelons of society, working class, lower working class people, not working class aspiring to be middle class. I mean lower working class people on minimum wage, with regards to this ULEZ extension, etc. It's just another tax. If they were serious about air quality, then they wouldn't flood the streets with empty buses. You talk about subsidies; they're subsidised for between, I think, I read somewhere ages ago between 90k and 130k per bus per route per year.
Yeah, well,
and then obviously like the Uber scum we know about. You know what I mean? These American.
Well, they're subsidised as well. You know, they're subsidised by
51%, but they've been bit on the arse now. I mean, I think there's a demo about minimum fares now. They're holding a demo shortly. Uber drivers in every major city, you know, with regards to their employees' rights, which Uber have ignored, and with regards to minimum fares and cancellations, etc., because they're using every trick in the book, drivers, to try and bump their money up. So we're led to believe when they cancel, 50 yards from the customer who's actually looking at the registration number and staring them in the face, they get a £5 cancellation fee. But anyway, their issues, their troubles, they're not my problem. What we need, even though the black cab trade is each and every individual is self-employed, I still think that we should come together more and be less fragmented, because I don't really think, apart from really going for the jugular like UTAG, who I've contributed money to twice, I don't really think the other organisations, maybe the LCDC put a lot of PR out there. You've got London Taxi PR who do a good job, but my main ones who have been hanging in there for years and years and years, the LTDA, I don't think they've been proactive enough.
Yeah, and I mean, I think I've come up with talking to a few people in the trade, and I like this idea of what was the bloody thing now? Can't remember the slogan. I think I mentioned it to you. Independent together. Independent together, and that's the trade. And you know, the independence of the trade is what I think is the fundamental efficiency of the trade, because I suppose the risk, the operational risk, the financial risk is fragmented amongst every individual driver, and that's why I think it survives. However, it's that can also be the reason that other companies and other stakeholders and authorities can hurt the trade, because you're all individuals. So I think if you can somehow come together whilst maintaining the independent spirit, it's a powerful thing. It's a really powerful thing. But you're right. You know, but separate to what I'm, you know, what I'm doing here. You know, that's I wrote a blog last week on what I'm working on, and on mobility exchange stuff, and that's I think what's needed in a trade. I really do. And I appreciate the retweet on that.
No problem, mate. No problem. You're welcome. Anything I can do, because what we got to remember is we tend to concentrate, or I do, on London, but I get correspondence from everywhere. You know, every major city in the UK. You've got men and women who can be bothered to do the local topographical knowledge of their chosen city. You know, be it Liverpool, Manchester, Edinburgh, Glasgow, Birmingham, even over in Belfast. You know what I mean? They
for sure.
You know, I mean, and it's like I said, my views are oversimplistic. If you want to get serious about air quality and thing, you could get 80 to 90,000 vehicles immediately off of central London's roads by just increasing the black cab fleet. And if you're serious about being a cab driver in London, then you should be have the full DBS, like the disclosure of borrowing service checks, full medical, full insurance. It's been proven that Uber, a lot of their drivers have got none of the above. I'm still waiting for the upside. When I question people out of the Institute of Directors or the Houses of Parliament about it, they just go red and look down. You know, there's nothing in the plus column apart from a formerly cheap ride, which has been blown out of the water, because you're getting, like a young lady I took to this side of Streatham a couple of weeks ago, got quoted 87 quid from the West End to Streatham. Even with horrific traffic, I think come to something like £29.60 in the cab, in a black cab. Anyway, before we go on to the football, very quickly, Joe. All I wanted to say, just to sign off on it, I watched him on the there's a thing like a late debate show on ITV. It was a couple of Thursdays ago. The new head of TfL. Yeah, and I've got to say, you know, more people need to make the UK taxpayer aware of, at best, the incompetence, at worst, malfeasance and corruption in office of TfL, because they're being economical with the figures, and it's lazy and it's too easy to put the blame on COVID. because they were 5.968 billion in debt, or in the red, or loss of revenue, or all of the above pre-COVID. Then he says, oh, it's another like 4 billion. Well, it ain't only another 4 billion, because if you go on previous figures, it's closer to 6 billion and above. And then you've got the 1.9 billion gratuity. I don't know what that's about, until 2030. So you could be living in Darlington, working in a village shop, selling cakes, but your tax and national insurance, or your tax is going towards what's going on in London. And I think that's absolutely diabolical. And it's all down to, like I say, malfeasance and previous corruption. It's funny, I got a leaflet through the door very quickly from Ian Duncan Smith, my local MP, saying, it says at the top, getting back to you, right? Or reporting back. And it's all the stuff that's going on in the local community, in the local borough, the local area, etc., that he's tried to address. Well, I spoke to him, 3.5, 4 years ago, and he said, I'll get back to you in a couple of weeks, Mr. Sitton. What a waste of time that was. We're talking 4 years ago, and I still ain't heard anything, because it all ties in with the corruption of the Tory party engaging with Uber when they planted the flag in London and other major cities in and around the UK. But sticking to specifics, I just think like it's an obscene amount of money that the UK taxpayer keeps being asked to shell out, and it's approaching. I think it's if you're going to be pedantic, or if I'm going to be, I think it's 29.7 billion by the year 2030, which I think is an horrendous amount.
Oh, it's crazy, absolutely crazy.
Yeah, for what? For what?
Well, I guess it's in part having to, the TfL by extension is subsidising the inefficient public transport network.
That's right. And it's like I've said, like I say to the ones that go red and look down between their legs when they come out of the IOD or out of the Houses of Parliament, instead of having 6 buses an hour, 5 of them empty or 4 of them empty, and the other 2 have got 4 people on, you cut it down to 4 buses an hour and go and scrap the other 2, just get them off the road. Yeah. And then the 116,000 plus minicabs, ostracise them to outside the M25 and the ULEZ zone, and stop this tax. What it is, it goes back. I mean, he was dismissed as a lunatic the same way as I was. David Icke. This goes back to his interview. He 2000.
Probably is a lunatic, to be fair, but yeah, go on.
Well, a lot of what he said's come true. So how much of a lunatic is he? Do you know what I mean? I mean, he's wrapped up in himself. There's no doubt about that. And there was a period where even I suffered from it. Like a Messiah complex. But the but it's true. But then we're going to come to stuff in football where you think it's all about credibility, right? But very quickly. He stated the equation: cause, effect, solution, and I mean you couldn't make it up. They've all got like degree, they've all got a PhD, and the biggest PhD idea they can come up with is let's spunk £1 billion on cyclists, cycle lanes, cycle circuit railways, mini island initiatives, and pavement widening for non-existent pedestrians, and low traffic neighbourhoods with railway sleepers converted into planters, so you can't go down there. And make a small road system smaller. What's that about? They go, oh, look at the traffic. Oh, goodness me, congestion equals pollution. Oh, goodness me, pollution. What we do, we need to pull this one out of the this rabbit out of the hat. Ultra low emission zone. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know. It's just
complete and utter bollocks. Because even if you listen, Joe, you could cycle, right, like Lance Armstrong for all our care. You understand? Or you could cycle like Bradley Wiggins for all our care. And there's plenty of them around there who think they are. Have a day out in Regent's Park and walk around there holding hands with your missus. There's a good chance they use it like a velodrome, these muppets. I mean, they're so anyway, the bottom line is you're still paying for the ultra low emission zone, even though you cycle and walk. You know why? Because you've got to eat and you've got to drink. Right, so any lorry delivering to Sainsbury's or Tesco's, there are other supermarkets available, right? They're paying the ultra low emission zone because it's now 24/7, right? They're paying. So what they do, they factor it into their budget, and who's that going to get passed on to? It's going to get passed on to the customer. Do you know what I mean? So it's all one big fat fairy story, one big fat con, and one big fat contradiction, right? And these, I don't know how these muppets get work. I honestly don't know. And the geezer who's the head now, He was in New York sorting out, he's English, and he was sorting out New York subway. And the former head of TFL was a Yank. So what's that about? Stick to your own, keep to your own thing, sort your own backyard out. Do you know what I mean? Instead of coming here making power grabs and working class lives, people's lives of misery and taxing them. We've got taxes coming out of our arse now. I think you've got to work till the end of June before you can even buy yourself a sherbet dab. Seriously. That's the stats. If you break it down pro rata, every man and woman now, they've got to work from January to June to cover all their outgoings and all the bills and all the taxes that they keep making up and thinking up before you can even buy yourself a packet of crisps. Anyway, fuck it. Let's go on to the football.
We must move on to the football.
Move on to the football.
As I say, we really need to consider.
You laughed at Messiah complex. You laughed at Messiah complex.
Yeah, right? Because everyone has.
This is a prime you for the questions that you want to ask, right? Because it's all about credibility, Joe. Me and you were talking on here how many episodes ago, how long ago, about Harry Kane coming too deep. Yes. Lo and behold, because I put it on Twitter. Well done, chaps. It's about time you caught up. Alan Shearer highlights how deep Harry Kane's coming for Spurs, and I said it for Spurs, and I said it for England. Right? Yeah, how many months ago?
Yeah,
what's he getting paid? 600 grand, 300 and something grand a year for the BBC for saying what we said 8 months ago.
Yeah, definitely. Funnily enough, I thought when he said that, at the end of his career, he was doing that for Newcastle. But so it's funny, he did the same thing. He used to come deep in the latter stages of his career. So
if people will subscribe a thing, go back through the episodes. I said Harry needs to be coming in off of that inside forward, like that left-hand tranche. One of the goals of his career, one of his most famous goals, where he come off that left-hand channel inside and he curled it in the top corner against Arsenal at White Hart Lane.
Yes.
Or he needs to be coming in off the left-hand, the right-hand tranche where he's made a run into the channel, lend it in, get it back, explode one. Or he needs to get face up like he used to coach centre forwards, right? Make it stick. Right, or set it one touch with quality, right? So he makes it stick and he goes bang, pings it wide, and then his game is peel him round, and then whoever's helping to flood the box, it could be the furthest wide man or it could be the furthest midfield player. Go near, and he's just bossing him to go to the near post, and then he peels, goes to the far post, or he just go bump, and he says, I'm near. And then so that tells his teammate, you've got to peel away and cover the far post area, that Pomo area. You understand what I mean? I mean, there's only three ways. You've got to get across the defender at the near post, dissect the two centre backs, or run the geezer under the ball and peel off at the far post and knock one down. That's his game. Or getting a surface to it, a side foot. You know what I mean? All this ending up 25 yards inside, 20 yards inside your own half to play it back. And then, I mean, he's not renowned for blistering pace. He's struggling to catch up with the play. I don't get it. Honestly, don't get it.
Well, obviously he's presumably doing it off his own back. It doesn't sound like he's being told to do it. He's doing it. Just what do you think the reason is? I know you just said you don't get it, but do you think it's because you don't trust the players to build up the play properly and give him enough support? Yeah.
What with England?
Well, yeah,
he was doing it for England. So what you're saying, you don't trust your teammates for England, and you're coming 10, 15 yards into your own half, 16 to 20 yards into your own half against Italy. What's that about?
Well, to be fair,
but with Spurs, you might have a case.
Well, but to be fair, we was talking about England. What, Declan Rice and Calvin Phillips, same midfield. You know, there's not a load of creativity there, is there?
No, there ain't. No, and I said that, and then I got hammered by, pardon the pun, by West Ham supporters. He does it every week. He drives forward, he explodes shots, he lends it in, gets it back, sets it wide, gets his goal. So that's what he's got to be for England as well.
Yeah,
he's got to be this, when he breaks it up, it's no good breaking it up and like he did all through the Euros. He went like that, 10 yards sideways, turned it out back to the centre back. The most proactive we was when I think he played it back to Maguire, and Maguire's gone like, you know what, fuck this, we need to pick the tempo up, and he went bang and he punched it in with a bit of purpose and into Kane's feet with a bit of tempo and a bit of purpose and a bit of positivity. Well, that's what he's got to do, Rice. But sticking to Kane, I just think like it might be. See, he's got to be. If he's bossing other people when he's making runs into the box, he's got to be bossed by the manager and the coach. And I just think it might be a bit of a leftover from Jose, and also the way Nuno coaches, whereby with Wolves, the geezer they sold to Liverpool,
Jota.
the geezer who had the head injury, and then the French bodybuilder who's got no end product. Traore, unbelievable strength, pace, and blistering pace and strength, right? So what they used to do, they used to concede the ball and then press from a certain area, okay, and then hit the opposition on the rebound, right? So you can either press from the front eye, which is my preference because it's a no-brainer. You're keeping any prospective danger as far away from your goal as possible. You pinch it back, you're in with a shout of getting in because you're winning it back in a good area, right? Or you concede the ball further back and defend slightly deeper. But then what happens is you're calling the opposition onto you, and then you're leaving plenty of grass in behind and plenty of space in behind for the likes of Traore to explode into the space and hit them on the counter, right? Well, that's not going to work with Harry. But it works with some, but it's not going to work with Harry. So what the point I'm making is it might be a bit of a leftover from the way he run things at Wolves. You know what I mean? He might be asked as in like come a bit deeper and bring them up with you, and then we've got plenty of grass in behind to hit them on the rebound.
Do you think it might be an element of Kane just completely running the show there and doing exactly what he wants because now he's staying there?
Yeah, well, that's football now. That's football.
No one tells him anything.
It's wrong, isn't it? It's wrong. If that's the case, it's wrong. I don't doubt for a minute he's a fantastic professional and he's shrewd in how he looks after himself. But if that's the case, then it couldn't be more wrong. You know what I mean? And everyone needs. I mean, I don't. I agree with something he said years ago. George Graham, even with the top flight players, they still need structure.
Yeah, well, you talk about Messiah complex. You know, has he got the Messiah complex, Kane? Because he ain't left for Man City. He's like, well,
yeah, and that situation's only going to fester. You know what I mean? He's got the chairman should have found an happy medium. Again, in a previous podcast, I mean, whoever negotiated a 6-year deal's got to be a muppet. You know what I mean? He's without a shadow of a doubt.
Best years of his career, isn't it?
Well, it's the best years of his career, and it's everything in football is it's a short-term profession. So what you don't do, you don't lock yourself in. I know only too well. You don't lock yourself into a deal that's in favour of the club. You try and find an happy medium whereby the supporters can see that you mean it, but at the same time, you know, you need an exit strategy.
So just on Tottenham then, so the wheels have fallen off royally after 3-1-0 wins. Got spanked by Chelsea.
Yeah,
did all right in the first half, but Tuchel made a good move bringing Kante on and completely destroyed Spurs. Could have been 6 or 7.
Yeah. It was more down to Lukaku though, Joe.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. So I thought on Chelsea. And then the second question after that will be predictions for Tottenham, obviously playing in the North London derby against Arsenal the weekend. So that's 2 questions really. But yeah, first one on Chelsea and.
I mean, I think I was listening to a pal of mine, Durham. They've swapped him over, and they've moved it all about at TalkSport, and he said that he went for Chelsea because basically they added a fantastic player, a £97 million player, whatever he was, £99 million player, to an already very, very good top draw squad that were European champions, which I think is oversimplistic, and football don't work like that, which is why I went for United. Lo and behold, they buy Ronaldo. But anyway, or they get Ronaldo. But yeah, I thought, I might have to rethink that one. But me being me, I'm not that fickle. I'm going to stick to my prediction, and I'll, you know, if they come unstuck, then I'll have to hold my hands up.
When you say not that fickle, do you mean stubborn?
Could be, yeah. Principled,
yeah. Right.
I said United. I'm going to stick with United at the end of the day. I mean, I've tried to be complimentary with on other podcasts about Ollie. You know what I mean? I just said he's wonderfully understated, and I think he can handle things. Whereas everybody else, especially up there, a lot of them they're doubting him. So, I mean, Lukaku. I mean, when you look at the Spurs backline, going back to that game, it's a 2-star nap. He's going to bully him, and you've got like a couple of them. They've already let one go, and then the other couple hovering around. It's like I said, it's like 3-4 seasons ago they were shot. You've got to stay ahead of the game. You've got to start as they start to lose a yard and start to get bullied and knocked about, and don't get up with a play and that sort of fire with regards to aggressively getting teams out of their box and winning headers and winning tackles and getting surfaces to the ball when crosses coming in. And killing attacks at source, that's when you've got to start looking for new centre backs. You know what I mean? And I just think they've left it too late. Then you add the Harry situation into the equation. Oh, it wouldn't surprise me if he's stuck there for life because he turned 28 in July, so then he's going to be 29 next year. So what's he got? Another 3 good years? I mean, he could probably play until he's 34, 35, 36, but it depends on what level. You know what I mean? But for sure, when you're talking in terms of in excess of £100 million, that's not good value when you factor in, like I said before, again, we give ourselves a pat on the back because we're not getting any recognition or money for it. We said on previous podcasts, when you break it down pro rata, I worked it out, it's like 1.2 million a week when you factor in wages, agents' fees, signing on fees, and all the other bum fluffery. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it ain't a good deal. So it wouldn't surprise me if he's stuck there for life.
So just on the game at the weekend, then Arsenal obviously they beat Burnley 1-0, sort of scraping results, but to be fair, they're sort of turned the corner slightly.
Here's the thing.
What's your predictions?
Here's the thing. Last podcast we managed to get together, we spoke about the Arteta situation. What I liked was I thought it was absolutely fantastic, and I think it sums everything up going on around him in terms of the way they've sort of re-endorsed him. He said, Arteta very quickly, he said in an interview, they asked him about the situation, the ongoing situation, and he said, it's been the best 2 weeks of my career. Playing
I heard him say that.
Coaching. Yeah.
Really interesting.
Yeah. So it's a veiled message because I know I experienced the opposite, right? They're going through they was going through a patch. It's an ongoing process. What happens is, they say like a week is a long time in politics. It can be even longer in football, and it can be even longer with football politics. You get people behind the scenes pointing the finger. People don't really know to go. I mean, when you look at the level I was at, there was all sorts of shit going on where we couldn't even, the groundsman he wouldn't even let us use our own pitch unless I bribed him with a bottle of vodka or a bottle of whiskey or a bottle of gin or a bottle of brandy and a case of beers so we could rehearse free kicks. I mean, this is the fucking nonsense that was going on. Disgusting. And then the oppos around him, making disparaging, disrespectful remarks to me face, actually. And, in another environment, I'd have got hold of them. But there was a thing in the boardroom, I just had to let it go. Yeah. Because the guy was inebriated and they shouldn't have been in there anyway. But you go back to the Arteta, you can see the similarities whereby, and total opposite, he's received the support and the reassurance that he needed because they're going through a process. Lo and behold, they nicked 2-1 nils. All right, okay. It's all due respect, it's Norwich and Burnley. But
Burnley
I think
away, though, they haven't played bad. I mean, that's a decent result.
No, that's right. I thought they'd get bullied. But then Arsenal being Arsenal, and it's the Arsenal of old, and I come up against them at every level. South East Counties football combination and first team, they're always physically well turned out. So I thought they stood up well to that. Well worth the win, and it wouldn't surprise me if they nick a result against all the odds against Spurs, considering when you look at the sort of when you compare the start, the start they both made, so like Spurs were like that, and Arsenal were sort of like that, and now Arsenal were on the graph are like that, and Spurs are like that. Do you know what I mean? So it wouldn't surprise me, but then if I wanted
Arsenal as well,
so either that or it'd be a draw.
The other one I think we should be remiss of us to discuss is the big one, potentially not the title decider, but the two big teams fighting for the title. Man City and Chelsea are playing on Saturday at 12:30. Chelsea are at home. How do you expect that one to go?
I think Chelsea beat them. And I'm not being biased because I had 6 years there, 5 of them wonderful. I just think like they might just have too much from in vital areas. I mean, I think the key for City really is to concentrate on, if they play, which they would. I don't see them changing their formation. Chelsea, I think the key areas for Man City is in behind the fullbacks. The passing and movement in behind there, or even like just like a clip into there but then they ain't, that's why they needed Kane. They ain't really got a body that's going to bend his run into that area and make it stick, and then sort of get some combination play going around the box. So I just think what I'd like to see Chelsea do is get higher up the pitch slightly, and then I just think physically they'll have too much nous for them, ability and physicality for them. So. I fancy. I mean, he hit the nail on the head. Klopp in the week. I know he's Liverpool manager, and you're asking about City and Chelsea, but it's one of those games, Joe, where going into it, because of how tight things are, you can't afford to drop many points.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. I wonder whether Guardiola, because he usually just plays his way of playing, and it's quite slightly arrogant in terms of he doesn't really got a plan B. He just goes for the plan A, and plan A will see him through. I wonder whether he, against Chelsea, who are absolutely flying, massive contenders, like say added Lukaku to the squad, to the team, whether or not he'll go there and just try and nick a draw, be a bit more defensive.
It might well be the case. Yeah. I mean, that arrogance you speak of. I mean, he obviously had a plan in his head, but I thought he left out 3 vital players in the Champions League final, and it smacked him in the face.
Yeah, and it did the weekend, didn't it? Man City drew 0-0 with Southampton.
Yeah. Listen, at a professional level, sometimes, at any level, if you're coaching correctly, appropriately, you might have to wait. So what I mean by that is if I was ever fortunate enough to be in Guardiola's shoes, it might be a case of setting up initially, not to get beaten, to tire the opposition out and to frustrate them. And then throw the Harlem Globetrotters on in the last 20 minutes.
Yeah. Well, De Bruyne's back. Foden's back, isn't he? So that could come on. Like you say, you could put, Gundogan, Rodri, and Fernandinho.
Which I think two of them he left out of the Champions League final, didn't he? Or at least one of them, Fernandinho. And I thought it was a big mistake. Yeah. But anyways, captain hindsight, isn't it?
Yeah.
We've all made ricks.
Another one. West Ham, I thought we were extremely unlucky to lose at home to Man United, but just sort of a couple of results haven't gone their way really. I know you tipped Man United for the title. They've added Ronaldo, as you mentioned, who scored again.
Yeah,
crazy the amount of goals the guy scores. There was loads of penalty claims in the game. I don't know about you, but the strangest decision I think I've ever seen in football with the Wan-Bissaka one on Souček, where he's completely cleared him out and he's given the foul against Souček. But just a word on West Ham really, and our Antonio being suspended, which is a strange one, getting sent off in the last minute. Yeah, just how you think they'll fare. Just have a look who they've got the weekend, actually.
Yeah, I thought, and he's
the way it leads.
He's capable of that. He's capable of that. Wan-Bissaka have been making rash decisions, of being clumsy.
Yeah,
and I thought that was a Stonewall penalty. And I think 2 out of the 3 Ronaldo claims were penalties.
Yeah,
and then in the end they give a penalty, and then I was given advice. I never took it because it ain't how I've led my life. While you're in a job, look for your next job. And I'm thinking to myself, is Moyes thinking about a job in American football now? Do you know what I mean? What was that about? Yeah. Yeah. Just, I thought, you know, if he does it, he gets the plaudits. If he scores, he gets the plaudits. If he scores, Noble gets the plaudits. Moyes gets the plaudits. Players miss penalties. Players score penalties. I just thought it was tempting fate, and you're actually setting yourself up.
Well, I know he's sweaty, but did you not watch the Euro final?
Yeah.
You know, exactly the same thing happened, didn't it? With Southgate?
I know exactly where you're coming from here with Rashford and Sancho. Yeah, coming on to take penalties. Me personally, I wouldn't do it, and I thought it was. See, like the thing is, someone with that much nous and experience, you go, well, trying to take the pressure off him. You know what I mean? Rice had the ball under his arm. Are you saying that he's not capable? Are you being disrespectful to Rice? Are you saying he's not up to it? Are you saying you don't trust him? You know what I mean? And if he's 22 and he said he's still a young boy and he's got a massive future after he had a great game in Europe, all these headlines and all these quotes from Moyes, don't matter his age. You understand? I said this. I had this thing with Clark Orient about a young pro, and he said, "You can't talk to him like that. You can't." And I spoke to him constructively. I didn't swear at him. I was just saying that, like, bossing him did it. And anyway, we conceded a goal through the kid. I might have mentioned it before, Stevie Johnson. I said to Clark, I said, Frank, you've got to make your mind up. Is he a youngster or is he a first team player? You know what I mean? I wasn't given the benefit of that doubt at Chelsea. And I was 18, 19. Right. So Rice is 22 with Euros under his belt, World Cup under his belt. It's the biggest load of bollocks you've ever heard in your life. It's spin that I can see through from outer space. You understand what I mean? And with regards to bringing over one, I just thought it was unprofessional nonsense. That's where I'm coming from. Yeah. If we was in an office, I'd just say, if he was the boss, I'd just say, I don't agree with it.
If he was Noble,
I'll tell him why.
I know it's difficult, but if you could put yourself in Noble's shoes, you know, he's getting on a bit. He's a very good pro, been at West Ham all his career.
Yeah.
Club captain, but he's on his way out. It's the last minute. It's Man United.
Yeah.
And the manager says, come on, you've got to take the penalty. I mean, could you say, you can say it in the Euros when you can say you don't fancy a penalty to take a penalty in the penalty shootout. Could you say it then? I mean, I don't know about, I'm not a pro. I never have been nowhere near it, but I wouldn't fancy taking a penalty in that. It's a no-win situation. I know you could score, but fuck me, there's an awful lot of pressure on it. Loads.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, someone, I was listening to a thing on radio, different opinions on radio in the week. Someone said, well, if they found it quite refreshing, as in, if the manager says do something, someone's done it.
Yeah.
But the flip side of that is what someone else said, a caller who called in. So that was from one of the pundits on radio. But then a caller called in and said, it sort of ties in with what I've said about Noble. So we're now at maybe the 5th, even 6th. I said his legs went 5 years ago. And then someone said, well, he was knocking on the door of England. I said, well, maybe that shows the thing. And just to underpin it, it was actually a West Ham supporter rung in. He said, well, if he's like Mr. West Ham, if he's been this, I mean, my personal belief is he's been a good pro, but he's what I would call, as a coach, you tend not to take too much notice if it don't affect you as a player and you're playing behind him. But as a coach, I would have called him just a continuity player. You know, he's not going to open teams up with an unbelievable threaded pass a la Gaza. He's not going to beat someone a la Gaza because he ain't got the yard and the body strength to get away from anybody. He never has had. He's not going to make the numbers up in the box and nick a goal. He's not going to explode a shot in the top corner from 25 yards. He's not going to go on a mazy and then pull everyone in for the lollipop ball to the far post. You understand that, as in Saka, you suckers have all come to the near post. I'm just going to dink it over you. He's just a continuity player, right? Mr. West Ham, popular, local boy out of Canning Town. I'll get all that. Yeah, lovely. But the bottom line is this West Ham customer, as Karen Brady calls him, who follows the brand, says if he was that good, how comes no one's ever come in for him?
Yeah, and let's be honest, Rice is a much better player than him.
Yeah, well, you've got talk from 2 years ago. People putting bids in for Rice. People want Rice linked to Chelsea, linked to Man United, etc., etc. Linked to moves abroad. There's the difference.
Yeah.
I just think it was the most nonsensical, unprofessional thing to do. Not that I've ever seen in my life, but to do. I've seen worse things in my life.
Yeah.
But I thought it, and I might have been guilty of a few myself. Some would say, but I just didn't get it. I thought it was nonsense.
Maybe that after Euros and that, maybe no one will ever do it again.
Yeah,
maybe that you know,
whatever it is, fourth quarter with a thing, and they bring the kicker on to get the, you know what I mean?
Clive Allen did it, didn't he? I think Clive Allen go London Monarchs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Didn't he?
This is where it's coming to now. It's what I've been saying it for a couple of decades now. Slowly. When I was a kid, it was Elvis, the Rat Pack, and a pair of Levi's. Now it's right across the whole culture. Everything from food to food delivery to all these Americanisms in sport, all the, you know, with regards to even we were talking earlier, the geezer at Brentford.
Yeah. Well, we come on to that. That's a good segue. I just want to mention, I think Kane has spoken about, I think on that interview he did with Neville, that he would consider going into the NFL as a kicker, which is, you know, he actually said that in the interview. I'm sure he did, unless I'm making it up. I'm pretty sure he said, you know,
I ain't seen it.
So you know, that's just following the footsteps of Clive Allen.
Maybe he can't do without the public clamour and adulation. So he would need. He's going to be a multi-millionaire. I said to his dad, do some good with the money. You know, once you're set for life, maybe if I'm set for life and I've got leftovers, I would do good. You know what I mean? He said, like what? I said, well, the thing was a massive flop because he weren't there, Beckham. But, you know, you put people you trust in place, open an academy, your own academy.
Yeah.
You know, as long as it's cost effective and self-sufficient.
Yeah, it doesn't need to make a profit, does it?
Yeah, I mean, it's too easy to sign on. I read an article the other day. It's too easy to get involved now. Ex-players steer people towards their brother, you know, who's an agent. It's too easy to do that now. But they smell money. I love one thing he said once upon a time, Arsene Wenger. You know what I mean? I thought that's a bit of me. That you can only wear one suit at a time. You can only wear one pair of shoes at a time. You can only eat one meal at a time. You can only have one knife and fork. You can only have one car. You can only drive one car at a time. So what he's saying is, what's it all about? I mean, ironically, he was on 8 million a year, but the point I think he was trying to make was, you know, this snowballing greed.
Yeah, and he was never gratuitous, was he? He's always actually quite understated. Arsene Wenger, to be fair to him.
Yeah. The yin and the yang, and the yang of football.
So, you should be the comp. I don't know what that makes me. Probably yin. So Brentford then, just quickly. You mentioned Moneyball, and you mentioned, matey, that Brad Pitt played in the film. Is a big investor in Brentford, and is arguably one of the reasons they're in the Premier League. You know, helping kind of statisticize, if ever that's a word, but basically utilizing statistics and data to get marginal gains out of players, and you know, that seems to be bearing fruit, and you know, a really good win away at Wolves. And they've started the season well. Obviously, beat Arsenal the first day of the season. So yeah, just a quick word on Brentford and their style of football. How you think they'll do? Because obviously a new addition to the London club scene in the Premier League.
Yeah, well, it's quite refreshing.
Yeah,
I would say. You know, that first season impact where massive adrenaline. I would think. I remember the Chelsea days. I was still an apprentice when they got promoted back to the first division under Eddie Mack. Just the club was it was unbelievable every day. You didn't want to go home and go to bed. The buzz, the atmosphere around the place. And I'm thinking to myself, having met Lord Hudson with this thing, you know, you imagine what it would have been like when they was around with the FA Cup, Cup Winners' Cup, League Cup final following year, spanking Arsenal at Highbury 3-0, you know, always in the top 3, 4, 5 of the league.
Yeah.
Just the buzz was phenomenal. So I can see, and I know firsthand the feeling, the vibe. The Moneyball side of it, I mean, what's that? Pitt and Jonah Hill, isn't it? I've never seen the film. Because as I flick through Netflix on my daughter's account, always a film crops up an old movie that I want to see again. So last week I think I watched Once Upon a Time in America, and last night I watched Sleepers again. Magnificent movie, very underrated.
Brad Pitt
again, that's why I got bags under my eyes. But I stayed up after a long shift, got home, and had come down with a Romeo short, and a cup of tea and watch that. But to me, when you're talking about, you can have statistics coming out your arse, Joe. At the end of the day, in the end, I'll still maintain it's down to two things. Three if you include the marriage, the ability of the player, and the coaching of the player.
But how do you assess the ability of the player? Do you use statistics to assess that?
They'll stand out. It's not. I mean, to me, like the Moneyball concept, when you talk about like algorithms and crunching thing, etc. You don't need the brains of Lloyd George. You don't need to be a mathematician or a statistician to work out whether someone's got it or hasn't, whether they can play or not. The rest, to me, is just common sense. When when they factor in age, I inherited a situation, and I actually put on Twitter, I see Derby have gone into administration. Welcome to my world. My previous world was you know what I mean?
Welcome to the men's room.
Yeah. Well, so they're gonna. Is he gonna have to do what I did and get rid of 14 players and trim the staff from 29 to 15? I showed a team photo the other day, pre-season photo, and I said immediately after that photo was taken, within a week, 2 players were gone. One ended up, he was never going to be good enough. Nicky Sweetman, he ended up at Endon. And the other one, Nathan Beckett, he come back nearly 16 stone. We got in touch with the PFA. We fined him 2 weeks' money. Then he just said, my heart's not in it. And the PFA tried to box his corner.
How old was he?
18, 19. I just said, you know what? What do you want to do? So he just shrugged his shoulders. I said, all right, well, what we do is we see if we can, what do you want your contract to pay your contracts, a portion of your contract? He said, all right, yeah. He said, I don't really want to play anymore. And that was it. And the excuse they used was to say, this is the goings on behind the scenes. The excuse they used was they never received letters from the secretaries. I mean, Chris Turner drafted a letter, gave it to the secretary, said, would you mind type that out and then a copy for each member of the playing staff and the coaching and medical staff, report back on this day, and this is your target weight. And the point being, the rest of with a few exceptions, like I'm thinking in terms of, like I've said before, I don't think 7's enough or 8's not enough. Paul Hild, best goalkeeper outside the top divisions, and a magnificent lad, great pro. Ian Endon, same. Cockrell, Bogey, West, Bellamy. And now after that, I'm struggling. So 6. Kevin Austin, beg your pardon, and then Peirce, who was 17. Right, but the point being, the majority, the previous incumbent, the majority of his signings were way past their sell-by date, had no resale value, used the club as an ATM in the twilight of their career. So the Moneyball concept, when I went in and spoke to 4 different chairmen, one of them was an acting chairman, Derek Weinray. I spoke to him and Tony Wood together, and I spoke to Phil Wallace, I spoke to Barry Earn. We need to put a marker down and have a strategy whereby we don't sign anybody over the age of 24. Because all this the collapse that's gone on at Derby, but basically they've played roulette and lost. You know what I mean? They've put all the chips on red and it's come up black, or they've put all the chips on black and it's come up red. And that ain't the way. That's not the way to run a football club.
Risk management at all.
Well, no, exactly. Yeah, and what you've got to do, you've got to have. I'm talking 7-day windows. In terms of short-term strategy, then you have a medium-term strategy, which is maybe season long, and then a long-term strategy. And so I think Derby have been guilty of the same sort of thing that went on at the little club that I was at, Leyton Orient. But it's the same. It's the same outcome, right? So in terms of the bread, in a long-winded answer to your question, Joe, I just think it's common sense. The Moneyball concept is common sense, and you can see they've got the appetite, the pace, and the organisation.
So on just last on that, then, do you think there is certainly in the case of Derby, maybe in the case of Leyton Orient, maybe in the case of Leeds when they went bust, pretty much? Do you think there's sometimes a lack of common sense in football, and they over-engineer what is essentially quite a simple game?
Yeah, they do. Yeah, but you've got the complex issues of ego and money. You know, like Mel Morris come out and said we lost. I think he said something like 19 million because of COVID. Well, every club in the world lost money because of COVID, because there was no income stream from supporters. Yeah. There was no income stream from the extra money whereby you play in front of the cameras. They get a set amount. Let me tell you, they get a set amount, then they get an extra amount for playing in front of the cameras. So if their game is the chosen game, the designated fixture, they get extra money. You get extra money for cup ties in front of the cameras, etc. Right? And then you've got all the bum fluffery like the supporters shops with regards to mementos and shirts and whatever, shirt sales. Yeah. Right? But like I put on Twitter, the damage was done before COVID, like it is everywhere else. COVID is lazy, lame, easy excuse. You get me? And what you got to do
spotlight, isn't it?
Yeah, well, yeah, what it is, and they just go like, well, they turn the spotlight away from me and put it on the thing and put it on and blame COVID, right? Yeah, what you got to do, look, what you got to do very quickly, like we used to at Little Leyton Orient, right? You budget, like when it comes to cups, you budget for the league only. You budget to go out in the first round of the League Cup. You budget to go out in the first round of the FA Cup. If you go on like 1 year under Frank Clark, I think we got to the 5th round. If you go on a run, so like we've come through 5 rounds, that's 5 extra games. Yeah. That could be an extra couple of million for the club. That's a bonus. That's a bonus.
Yeah,
it is. Yeah, it's a bonus. Yeah, and then you get like I got penalised for the bonus. Yeah, right. And then when I was there, we got to the area final of the Alta Windscreen Trophy, and like I said before, that made you laugh. They all think Bazza come in on his white Charger and saved the day. Knight in shining armour. We generated between 150 and 200 grand just from the 2 games against Birmingham. Do you know what I mean? So that was half of the season's total losses eradicated in 2 fixtures. You know what I mean? But what they've done, Derby have done the opposite. They've had managers, and then managers know the coup, which I never knew, that they knew the coup and have it all locked in. Even further down, like I said to you before, a lower league manager had it locked in that they had to settle up with him within 28 days. And he was openly bragging at a golf day, ex-pro golf day, to a mate of mine, the settlement he got. Well, you can live off of that money. Like I'm talking, live really well for 4 years. A club like in the lower reaches of the divisions, the lower reaches of the Football League. Well, at that level, Derby, you're talking settlements that run into the millions. And then you're talking about signing players who the total opposite of Brentford. They're not coming up. They're at like a minute past midnight. You get me? On that, you know, on that clock when we spoke before, you want to be buying a player because spot massive potential, but no one else is really see it. He's at 20 to 12, and then you build him up to like 3 minutes to 12 and sell him. In the meantime, you've had a lot of goodness out of him. You understand? It's like you put them in this like a juicer. You put them in, you juice them in the blender and get loads of goodness out of them, and then you rinse the
drink it.
You sell the drink.
You
drink it, but you sell the drink, but you drink it yourself. But then the dregs, you rinse it under the tap and it goes down the plug hole. He's gone. You know what I mean? We've cashed in on him. Well, what they've done, they've bought too many players at like 5 past 10 past 12. So there's only one way for him. That's the thing. If we look at the thing's going like that down.
The fruit's off. Like the fruit's off.
The fruit's off. You shouldn't have put it in a blender. You get me. It's a great metaphor, analogy, whatever word you want to use.
I'll tell you what, we come up with some great metaphors on this podcast.
I think we do, but But that's apart from the technical aspect of saying things like Harry Kane's coming too deep fucking 6 months ago, and Match of the Day's just caught up.
Well, John, I think we've covered a lot of ground there. Let's call that one I was going to say, I was going to use a funny analogy, but I can't say it on there. Yeah, but that's let's call it one a day, and we shall reconvene next week.
Yeah, after the weekend's fixing some big games. Every game's a big game, isn't it?
Yeah, but Chelsea, Man City, tasty. 12:30 Saturday.
Yeah, one thing. I think in that and the North London derby, I think there should be, by rights, there should be a few goals. There might even be a red card in the North London derby. I'd have a tenner on a red card.
That's a good shout.
Tenner on a red card because
I might join you with that.
Even at this vital stage.
Yeah, I like that shout because
early stages. Klopp hit the nail on the head in the week, didn't he? You know. I mean, for me, it's just the way it was my love of the game, enthusiasm for the game. Every game was a big game, whether it was Lincoln away or Everton in the League Cup. You get me? Every game was a big game. You've got to get your adrenaline and your heart's got to be up for it. Because I just loved playing, and like I said before, I think that was exploited. But anyway, he's hitting the nail on the head, like Klopp. He just said that within that sort of mini league within the league, you can't afford to really be dropping points. And I think it was a sly dig at the 0-0. The City Southampton 0-0. Little mind game started already, haven't they?
Yeah, and Liverpool, I can sense some real confidence in that team, real confidence, and Klopp as well. I think it'd be interesting to quickly get your thoughts. If you're playing mind games, you've got to be comfortable as a manager in what your team's doing. If you can think about playing the mind games, you think of Fergie at his pomp. He knew his team was absolutely on the limit, so he could then start to manipulate and play around. If you're worried about your team, the last thing you're thinking about is mind games, presumably. So, it's a sign of massive confidence if he's getting involved in that. I would say. Yeah.
I love them all. I admire them all. But I think out of the top four, I think he's the only one that's that does that, resorts to that, is capable of that. I think Pep must see a lot of similarities in terms of his imagination, which I said is one of the best assets a coach can have. But what I see in Pep is a similar trait to myself. I think he's a little bit sensitive. He's very prick. Well, yeah. When you are, you listen. Let me explain this very quickly. When you are right, and for me, it's part of coaching and it's part of the game. This is not news to me. All this talk now, they keep using the word precise. You've got the geezer at Brentford using the word precise. You've got Tommy Tickle talking about precise. Yeah. As in, it's a Germanic trait, right? So we're a Germanic race anyway, but that's history. They're talking about it, the pundits, and they're using repeating the word as if it's a new concept. It's absolutely everything a coach should be, which is precise, right? But the bottom line is this. I look at Pep and I see in him a trait whereby I was guilty of it myself. You feel like you've got to right every wrong. You feel like you've got to answer every question. You feel like you've got to have a comeback to every little pop, every little dig, every little veiled agenda. Sometimes you just got to go, you know what? I'm a multi-millionaire. I can retire at the beach in Barcelona anytime I want, right? I'm in a fantastic environment. I'm in a fantastic club. We're working with fantastic players. I'm not even going to waste my time with that. You know what I mean? But they do because it's in his makeup. It's part of their makeup. It's part of his personality. And that ain't a criticism. It's just that you see that trait. And I just think Tuchel, I think, is very forensic. And they were going on about Frank. Someone yesterday was having a pop at Frank, which I thought was just because, like, basically you don't know the runnings of a football club. You're ignorant. You're a muggy pundit. Well, you know, this is what I said in my book. It's your worst nightmare. Is a supporter with a pen or a supporter on the end of a mic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They've gone on about Frank ostracised certain people. He was stubborn in the way he wanted to play, and he's welcomed them all back into the fold. You could argue that Alonso's the best wing back in Europe at the moment. Blah blah blah. All this bollocks, right? What he's done is he's inherited a situation where people felt left out and ostracised and discarded, and then very cleverly right? But not rocket science. No broom sweeps clean, no boss. Everyone starts with a clean slate, and all of a sudden, it gives them an extra 10% in training. You know what? I'm gonna play you because this is the way I want to play. Then they have a couple of good games. All of a sudden, they're back in the fold. They're back in the fold. Whereas Frank predominantly had to go with youngsters.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So they've gone from transfer embargo, right? Not being taken into consideration very quickly on Radio Yesterday. None of that was taken into consideration, really. Just criticism of Frank, which I thought was unfair. He's had to go with youngsters, him and Jody Morris, right? Then all of a sudden now, we'll buy
Chilwell, Lukaku, Werner. Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're talking about $250 million there straight away.
Right, John.
Mate.
Let's do episode 18 reconvene next week, and big weekend. And again, questions. We're not getting many questions at the moment. We're getting a lot of comments and stuff on YouTube, which is great. Need more questions. So shout out to all the subscribers on your channel, John. And on your followers, get your questions in, because I'm sure you want to ask some questions to John himself. But thanks for your support, as always.
Please watch, subscribe.
Yes.
Share. And we'll take any questions on board. There's one, I should have had my phone and someone asked me a question. I'll address it in the next one.
Okay.
Yeah, but that was by DM. But like you say, we welcome any questions, any input.
Right, cheers, lads. See you next week.